Where we eat, it's where we shop, it's where we go to meet our friends and colleagues. In the wake of COVID-19, our small business community desperately needs our help. We must do our part to help our local communities to once again thrive. We must focus our attention on the small businesses that are the fabric of our great nation. SureUp is a network of small business owners, their employees, and local consumers all working in unison to support each other. By creating incentives for consumers to think local before considering regional and national providers to fulfill their needs, we create local job opportunities and rebuild our communities. In addition, through AI-driven tools and machine learning, in just 5 minutes a day, SureUp assists business owners in improving their social media presence, which enhances their visibility among consumers and levels the playing field so that local businesses can better compete with large, name-brand online competitors. When local businesses leverage the SureUp platform, full-time and part-time employees, whether W-2 or 1099, are rewarded with a variety of voluntary perks and member benefit options. These include discounts on the things people do every day, access to low-cost, subscription-based telehealth and teletherapy, discounted prescription drug plans, connection to exclusive Prosper resources, and so much more. All for less than the cost of a cup of coffee each day. The Jumpstart Marketplace is here to support the health and wellness of individual employees, as well as the health of businesses in the local communities in which we live and work. We're all in this together, so join us as we reinvigorate our local community and improve the physical and financial health of working America.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
Dean, and we are live in the Cane Roots Art Gallery with Kalaloo Network Culture TV, broadcasting on Tempo Network. We are covering art over Bush tea. And today my co-host is Patrice Deschabert, and our visiting artist is not only an artist, but a personal friend of mine, because we met in 2016 and I fell in love with his work. Actually, the piece behind me, which is called Bouquet, was the first piece of work that I collected from Jamal Barber. So in gallery today, we have Jamal Barber with us as we co-host with Patrice. Jamal and Patrice, welcome to Cane Roots Art Gallery.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Jamal, for me, one of my first questions I want to ask, because what I've seen a lot these days on Instagram or Facebook and even on podcasts are as artists begin to tell their own stories, which I love this new way that, because even though we are in the pandemic, there are more integrated ways that artists are sharing their lives with us. And I particularly saw an artist in DC who will sometimes Instagram her life as a mother with the 11-year-old in the household while the 2-year-old is doing something else. And they're also sometimes trying to imitate their parent their mother in terms of painting. I just wanted to know from you, because so much has happened since we've met. you going back to grad school, how have you integrated your artistic creative side with your family life, with your wife and your two beautiful children?
Thank you, Sonia. It's so good to see you again, like all the time. Um, so I basically managed to build my practice around my family, like if that makes sense. Everything is about a trade-off between if I'm going to be doing something, is what I'm doing worth me not playing with my son, right? Or would my time be better suited riding bikes with my kids or hanging out with my wife? So everything is balanced. So, and they know it too. They know the importance that art has for me as an individual. They know that if I don't get a chance to express myself, then daddy won't be the same daddy, like nice, laid back, having fun daddy. Um, and so part of it is growing and them understanding that me as being an artist is who I am, not separate from it's not what I do, it's who I am. And so with that, they give a lot of deference to my artwork and my practice. I basically have the whole basement to myself, and just working from home, they know they have an appreciation for it. My house is full of art too. I'm not just my art, but the art that I collect from trades and buying arts with other artists that I know. And so I think it's just integrated into our life in a big way.
Oh, that's incredible. That's a terrific answer. Well, that says a lot about you and your wife and your children.
So
Say
I
again?
have a question. I have a question for you, Jamal. I understand that when you were little, in I guess like elementary, junior high, about there, you would scribble a lot, right? You would draw on your textbooks, your notebooks, and then in high school, you learned about Homer. I'm saying his name correctly, the artist. Could
Yeah,
you tell us
Romare
about
Bearden. Yeah, I was always a creative kid. I saw my dad make my mom a birthday card one time, and I was just amazed by the fact that he was the one that made it because it's kind of the same stuff that you see on TV all the time, but my dad was the one that created it, and so that feeling of being able to transform a piece of paper into something that would give people joy, that was always fascinating to me. And then I got into comic books and kids books, the children illustrations in kids books. Um, like all that stuff was really magical. It was like you create like your own world. And so it wasn't until I saw Romare Bearden's work where it became less of a fantastical thing and more of this is an expression of not just him as an individual, but us as Black people. And so I don't know, something about that moment when I found his artwork, it was just so Black, right? It was just, I just saw myself so much in that artwork, and I thought that was amazing. And that's kind of what drove me deeper into it. I would say deeper into it. Like it took it from less of a hobby of something that I did on the side into something that I wanted to do forever. And so that revelation that I could represent myself, I could represent my people, I could tell the story of the people that were in the projects in Richmond, the people that were in Lewiston, North Carolina, working in the fields. Like I could represent all of that, and I didn't need anything extra other than my mind and my hands.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful to be able to capture history and what's in your heart on paper in that way. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you wonder about it sometimes because it's such a big part of my life
Well, it's
that I
interesting
don't.
that
Oh, go ahead, Sonia.
it's interesting, Jamal, that you said that because in terms of your respect and your world for Romare Bearden, I just want to bring everyone's attention to this book called Romare Bearden, His Life and His Work. As I think of you talking about that and your purpose of bringing the people around you or your own community to life in your work, I think about Romare Bearden's series, the Mecklenburg series, which you of course know about the Mecklenburg series. And the Mecklenburg series really accounts for where he grew up in Mecklenburg. And it is so beautifully documented in collage and some watercolor. Actually, in terms of being a collector, and I just always tell people that you see something and you like it, get it, and bring it into your home. And the piece that I own from the Mecklenburg series is called The Open Door. So I can relate to what you're saying in relationship to how that inspired you to document that particular part of your life.
Yeah, for sure. It made me realize that, you know, as you turn a mirror to yourself, like you have to know that there's the special about you, right? Even in just being in Littleton, North Carolina, middle of nowhere, working in the fields, like you're still special. There's still something about you that is unique and that the world needs to see. And just telling those stories is for me, it was a revelation. And I still consider my art to be kind of propaganda, because I'm pushing back on these narratives that tell us that we aren't worthy, right? That there is nothing special about Black people or Black culture, or that we're not unique, that we don't have value. And there's a lot of value in a lot of what we do. Even the way that we talk to each other, just, you know, our little things that we do to show love. And I think we just have to redefine the narrative of what is normal, right? The things that Black people do are just as normal as anything else. Like, you don't have to have, if your family doesn't have, you know, a mother, father, a picket fence, and a dog, like, y'all are still a family, and there's still value in it, and there's still love in it. If you can lift up that light, it changes your perspective on everything.
Now, Patrice, you've had firsthand to experience what I consider the genius of Jamal, because you had the opportunity to visit him in his studio at where he's working from now, because I did that like about 2 years ago, and I called him and said, I'm in town, can I visit? So why don't you, I think it'll be great for you to share that experience with us, with our listening and viewing audience, about how you interacted with that.
Absolutely, yes. And some of the teaser video you may have seen on social media, I captured to show some of his work behind the scenes and how he actually made his pieces of art. And yeah, Jamal is quite unique. He really does have the entire basement to himself. Like, the whole basement was his studio, and he's got art everywhere, and it's gorgeous. And what I learned about modern and contemporary art that I just never even knew was the amount of like layers it takes to create the art. So I saw where Jamal started with certain colors and certain patterns, and he put that to the side, came back and did some more layering of art on top of that, until he got to the piece that was complete to him. I also learned about the scoring that he did when trying to create some of his work, and using colors and blending that and allowing layers of colors to emerge from the patterns that were below. So that was quite a good experience. Thank you for letting me into your studio, Jamal.
No, thank you for coming. And you got to see some new, fresh work that nobody else has seen yet. So, so you get the special preview.
I think one of those things behind him is representative of one of the pieces that he's still working on, right, Jamal?
Yeah, that's right. So the one over here is that's a piece I'm doing my thesis show. I'm about to graduate with my MFA in a couple of months, And so this is kind of part of my thesis work. I'm not typically a painter, but I picked it up because of the pandemic. I lost access to my press. And so, you never stop creating. So it's just a matter of how it's going to come out will be a little bit different. So I end up going back to basics, to just drawing and then painting, then exploring color and shape. And, this new body of work just came out of it.
Well, Jamal, it's very interesting about, there's a little bit that you and I have in common that I've never shared with you. And that is, in your youth, when you look through books and comic books and wherever you got those images from, my first familiar images that I became aware of, images on paper, was through children's books. And it was through Ezra Jack Keats. And him, in those books, he documented a young boy called Peter. So there was a book called Peter's Chair and A Snowy Day. So it's a book that I used to read to preschoolers. And it was very influential in my life to show young children books where the individuals looked like them on paper. So that was always something that I carried through my life. And then came Jambo Means Hello by Tom Feeling. So children's books and their illustrations are very impactful when we read to children, when we sing songs, in terms of those songs. And if it's a storybook where there's a song, that they have those images on it. It's very important that those images look like them, or that it's an integrated image where children can feel very positive about who they are. So in terms of your experience in the comic books and the things that you saw when you were younger, I was encouraged to, as a teacher, to read books where it reflected the lives of the children that I worked with. And then it also impacted me starting collecting art when I bought my first piece of art, which was the illustration to the book Jambo Means Hello.
Oh, wow.
When we return, we're going to cover a lot of your work, which we haven't done that as yet, but we'll be able to do that when we return. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go to break?
Oh, no, I think that's perfect. And also just the fact that some of the artists of the books were Black meant something to me. Like, even if the images weren't Black per se, but having an artist like Jerry Pinkney, he's one of my favorite artists, watercolor artists. He did a ton of kids' books. He's a magnificent guy, but just knowing that the hand behind the image is Black is important too.
Okay, Jamal, Patrice, we'll be back after we take our break. This is Sonia Nahardeen with my co-host Patrice Deschabert and our guest artist today, Jamal Barber.
Wow. Freedom right now means the ability to do what we actually set out to do without, any prohibitions, without any man-made hurdles.
By the end of the Almighty, we forward in this generation.
And so uniting our region, letting us see each other and understanding that together we are actually much stronger. Continuing to spread that unification. All these various islands we haven't been yet that just dying to feel the temple. We're gonna go give it to them.
Redemption song. Redemption song.
I always remember Frederick being, just from a very early age, very smart. When he got older, he became very popular. He was Mr. DJ, Mr. Entertainer, always dancing, always dancing.
I'm sitting here at MTV Networks, and I'm thinking to myself, well, Caribbean people have contributed so much to the world and to world pop culture. I started to think about all of that, and I was like, wow, these are all the things that make great television.
It's exciting, very exciting. I always figure he'd do something like this. I never know to what extent he would be, but he always had the potential to do something like this.
From that moment, I knew that Tempo was going to be something special, something new, something different, because there was this confident, easygoing, proud black brother. He got right into it, told me all about what he had in mind, all about what his visions and his dreams were. I was hooked, line and sinker.
For me, Tempo is really embody the Caribbean, not just in music and just in videos, but it's the life on different islands.
He was the main person that pushed me and supported me, and if it weren't for that push, I probably wouldn't have hosted up until now.
In the short time that I've been here, almost a year and a half that I've been here at Tempo, I have really seen how hard you work, and I can only imagine how much work you have put in over these past 15 years.
Because I believe that I've been ordained to do what I'm doing, and that is to put my fist up and say Caribbean is the most extraordinary place on earth.
And we're back. It's Sonia Nahardeen from Cane Roots Art Gallery, Callaloo Culture TV, broadcasting on Tempo Network. I'm here with my co-host, Patrice Deshabert, and our featured artist, Jamal Barber over Art Over Bush Tea. Welcome back, everyone.
Hey.
What we're going to do as we go into our next section, we're going to feature some of Jamal's work. So what you'll be seeing right now would be some images, some footage of Jamal's work. I think it should be coming up shortly. I think we're going to have like about 6 pieces. Some will be printmaking in black and white, and some will be in color.
I see we're looking at one of the pieces, the color pieces.
While we're waiting for that, it will be up shortly. I just want to say that when I bought this piece behind me, and it's called Bouquet again, I will say in 2016, not only was it the flowers I felt that I was giving to myself, but it was also, I was going to continue wearing flowers, and it remains that way in my house. So now we can start the footage, but I just wanted to bring your attention back to the piece behind me about the bouquet. So here we'll go. We're going to go to the images right now.
So this first piece that we're looking at, we want to probably dive into what that first piece is, perhaps, and ask Jamal what the name of this painting is and what it represents.
Yeah, so this was around when the pandemic hit. I was thinking about um, what was important at the time, so I didn't have access to my press, and so it just became important to represent some kind of life, right? Because it was kind of a depressing time. You know, you couldn't go anywhere. They had ran out of toilet paper. You know, all the stuff that was going crazy. People were dying. Ended up losing family members around that time. So I wanted to make something that was more celebratory, especially of where I came from. So this piece is called Carolina Woman. And I just think about a woman that's from where I'm from that is embracing her heritage and her culture. Not just specifically an African culture, which is where we borrow from, but what about North Carolina? What about South Carolina? What about living there in that area is special? So I thought about like the rooster kind of with the weather vane in the back. There was an artist, a slave called Dave the Potter, and that's one of his pots sitting right behind her. And just to give a sense of that history that, you know, where we're from, we made things, right? Like we're not just slaves and, you know, misplaced people. Like we have created our own way and have our own culture, and that's what's beautiful and should be celebrated about us.
That's gorgeous. I didn't even understand that it had so much of a history behind it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you know, this piece that we're showing now is called Celestial Dance. It's kind of the same way, just taking those different kind of. This is based on the African mask and like the raffia that's at the bottom of it, but just remixing it, making it more colorful, more lively. Because at that time, like I said, I was looking for light. I'm looking for levity. I'm looking for something other than the struggle that we were going through. I started making these paintings also around the time George Floyd was murdered, and usually I do jump right into the social commentary. I talk about struggle and how prideful we are, how great we are, how we're battling the system. And just during the pandemic, it was just, you know, I felt like I couldn't let the struggle be the only thing my kids were inheriting from Blackness. Like Blackness is much more than that. Blackness is life. You know, Blackness is a fullness of spirit. And I don't often focus on that enough, you know, and that was, and for these paintings specifically, I'm just avoiding all sense of struggle, all sense of drama, and just trying to show like what freedom is. Like when we do get a chance to represent ourselves without thinking about whiteness in any form or fashion, like without thinking of the vestiges of slavery or like anything else. Just when you think of a free Black spirit, what do you see? And kind of a lot of these images came from that idea.
This is one of my favorites, Jamal. I just love the gold sort of leaf that's in the foreground.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this one?
Yeah. This one on that same line of, you know, just showing the greatness of Black people, right, and embracing the color that we give to the universe, right, and that we're part of it. And so this one is, I also play with nature and leaves a lot, just to let us know that we're connected to the earth, we're connected to the universe, and that's part of who we are. So it's always some leaf or some form of plant life around us, because we're connected to that kind of earth spirit, that the nature of creation, the energy of the universe. Like that's who we are as a people. Like it's kind of one of those people that in trying to visualize a new way to see us, right? And what would it look like if if I could, you know, break off all the shackles and just show us in our pure beauty, you know?
This has been one of my favorites. I don't know why. When you sent us the collection of pieces, I don't know if it was I like plant life too. So again, like the bouquet behind me with the flowers, and
Yeah.
this again having plant life with it. This piece really, I was really drawn to this piece a lot.
Thank you. And so this was also part where I started making this one to man packs. I started making these abstract backgrounds first, and I think, and I was telling Patrice when she came, it's almost a separate process to create the abstract background and then add the figure later, right? But it's two separate things because it's a type of freedom to create an abstract background with just colors and blues and reds and oranges and everything kind of dancing together. And that creates a separate world where it allows these new people to exist separate of all the madness that we have going on in the world now. I'm creating a different universe, a universe that works with my figures, right? That my figures are a part of, that my figures define, my figures create movement inside of it. And so that kind of was a new shift in how I was approaching my work. I really enjoy it.
I just love the colors. The colors are so vibrant. Now, when I saw this piece, I almost thought it might have been a self-portrait, because I thought at first it was a palette, you know, from where the artist takes the paint from and mixes the paint with the paintbrush. And then I looked a little closer and I said, wait a minute, I don't think it's a palette. I think he's holding a hat, because there's something else going on. Am I right?
Yeah, he's holding a hat. Yeah.
Yeah, but at first, my first immediate thought was a self-portrait at another time, and you had the artist palette that you were holding. Well, you see what happens when you buy art. You buy art for the reason why you love it, and
exactly.
I loved it for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, if you look closely at a lot of those paintings, and a lot of my paintings have kind of my printmaking sensibilities to it, where it's a lot of lines. My figures go in and out of graphic lines and work. And so this one here is one from my Black Love series. Like, you know, I do these big series, and then right at the end of it, I'm so burnt out and angry and upset. I always go back to what brings me joy. And usually one of the best moments of my life was my wedding day. When me and my wife, we've been married 14 years now. And I think about that day all the time. And I just think about how much how much a part of my creative process she is, because she allows me to be myself and to explore, and gets me time, and reminds me to eat while I'm down here working. Like, you know, everything that she does for me. So I go into this Black Love series is one of my long running series. It's been about 2 or 3 versions of it. And so, you know, I'm celebrating love. So, and these, I'm basing it on the Dogon figures, the primordial couple. And I'm just thinking of different ways for the two figures to embrace, and still including the patterns, which you can see in some of the paintings in the later work. But pattern is important to me.
Jamal, we're going to come back and continue with the other Black and White series. We're going to go to a break. Thank
right.
you. We'll be right back with Patrice and Jamal. with Cane Roots Art Gallery and Kalaloo Network, Culture TV, broadcasting live on Tempo Network, presenting Art Over Bush Tea. You know, we didn't even get a chance to talk, Patrice and Jamal, about what teas we're drinking today. We kind of just jumped into Jamal and his work. And I know, Patrice, you had such an incredible time visiting with Jamal. And I just was so excited myself in terms of being able to have him visit with us in the gallery today. But we are having our tea session as we normally said that we would. And I'm having ginger with spices from Grenada. I'm using today's cinnamon bark infused with the ginger and also some lemongrass. Lemongrass seems to be a continuation of mine every week, but that's what I'm having today. Patrice?
That sounds so good, Sonia. Like, I'm gonna have to get that tea recipe. The ginger, the cinnamon, the lemongrass sounds delicious.
Yeah.
I'm having it's a tea bag today, but it's French vanilla chai. I didn't do a wonderful mix like you. I have to try that next time. But this chai is actually pretty good. I get this chai, different flavors of the chai, the spice or the French vanilla, but I love it. This is what I'm doing today for artists. Jamal, what are you having?
So I ran out of my Georgia peach blend tea I get from Taste of Honey down here in downtown Atlanta. So I had to go old school with just, my ceramic cup and some black tea, keeping it simple.
Black tea is good too, though.
Yeah.
Jamal, you're having black tea?
Yeah.
Actually, our artist last week, when I was learning more about tea from her, and actually we learned that Taiwan was such a major producer of teas, and black tea is one of them. So it was good to hear that you're drinking black tea. And tea serves so many different purposes, not only in ceremony, but in terms of things that are good for our body. So we're back, and we're going to continue talking about your work, Jamal, and we're going to continue with your black and white series that our audience can see.
Yeah, this one.
Let's see which one's next.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sonia, that this one reminds me a lot of African statues, like the rigid shapes and sort of the pronounced lips and the pronounced bust. It reminds me a lot of African statues that I've seen and have in film.
Yeah, I got it from, they have this the Dogon make this African statue. They call it a primordial couple, but they give it as a wedding prize. And it just has so much symbolism to it. And one of the symbolisms was the man usually has his arm around the woman, and it shows how connected they are. So I just took that idea of embrace and just kind of play with it and to show all the different ways that a couple will embrace each other. If you go to a couple and it's like, hey, y'all take a picture, they do whatever they do, right? They kind of have a way that they relate to each other, and kind of these different embraces are a symbol of that.
Got it. What do we have next?
I've had to control my excitement because Patrice is really our Atlanta-based contributor and co-host. So Jamal, I've kind of had to let her take the lead on this because she's going to be covering most of the Atlanta artists. So it's been hard for me to control myself because I've been trying to have her, she's discovered you, so I'm letting her take the lead on this. Let's see if we have another black and white image to show the rest of everyone. Here comes. This is sweet. Oh my God, I love this couple.
Yeah, so this was when I started redoing the Black Love series in this version. I think it's about 4 or 5 of these now. This was my original intent. So you see how it goes in and out of the solid blacks, and then the patterns and line work, and I think that kind of abstraction is a symbol of mine.
I love the flower that you put within them. It's beautiful. What does that represent?
So for me, that represents how the woman is the nurturer of life, right? But again, bringing back the leaves and kind of those different symbols. We're always connected to nature. I think we tend to forget that with our phones and and TV and all the other stuff that we do. But women create life. We do it together, and we nurture it, and kind of she becomes the vessel of it, of manifestation of our love for each other. And so, I think that's the original way for us to be together. The Dogon have been carving those statues for years, right? They understand the nature of things, and you kind of don't have to reinvent the wheel. They already know. They found it out. They see it. So you just have to listen.
And this one?
So this one is called History Part 1. It's going to be a series of these, and it's just kind of telling the story of Black people. So if you think about, again, I threw in the African sculptures in there in the background, and then you see other than that, you see a ship riding waves, and it's kind of symbolism of how we migrated or were taken, enslaved, and brought here from another land. And kind of this History Part 1's kind of the history. I did this for a project called 400, where I was telling the story of, from 1619 to 2019, like what did this mean? And if you kind of break it down into parts, it will start here, right? It will start in Africa in our journey. And then from there, everything that we went through, overcame, enjoyed, loved along the way. So this is part 1. This is a series I'll get back to when I'm finished my paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal, I just want to plug in something. When we met the last time in Atlanta, and you showed me this piece, and you talked about 1716, and that year was 400 years. I had an ankle bracelet made, and I had an ankle bracelet made to commemorate that journey for 400 years. And I asked the artist, as a jeweler, to make what he thought, to interpret what would be a shackle. And I want you to know that visiting you that spring in Atlanta inspired me to have that piece of jewelry made for myself.
Wow, that's awesome.
So we're going to have the next slide.
So this one is from my Identity series. And so, as we as Black people exist in America, we always confronted with, when we confronted with authority figures, the state, they always want to take away your identity. They want to make you part of a anonymous evil whole, right? And so you don't get to be, like, for myself, for instance, when I was pulled over, me and my best friend Mike pulled over for a felony stop for no reason, guns drawn, and us, and they think we robbed a bank, something like that. And in that moment, it just takes so much away from you. So at the time, I was a college graduate. I owned a home. I was married. I was an artist. I was all these things, but it didn't really matter. And so that kind of jarring effect, that kind of violent taking of your identity is what these pieces were about. So I think this is series another 5 or 6 images. And so when you're doing a portrait, it's very important that you get the eyes correct in a portrait, because it starts to look like a person. And in this series, I kind of just take that away. I chop it away with a hatchet on my wood blocks, and just kind of violently not allow you to be yourself. I don't think people really understand how psychologically damaging that is for you to be fully functioning and then have it stripped away from you for no reason, with no repercussions. Basically, they let us go and, go about our way. But how do you go to sleep after you had a gun put in your face? handcuffed and stuff. So I don't know. It's this series was important for me. It also was a breakthrough in my artwork. It let me know that I did want to make these strong, pointed statements, right, and not so much dance around the edges about civil rights and all that kind of stuff, but think about the real consequences of what's happening to us.
That's powerful. That's very powerful, Jamal. I have a quick question for you, because you have such a wide range of what you've done, the colors and black and white, and the history you tell, and speaking to even current political issues or issues of culture, right? What do you have for words of encouragement for aspiring artists, young artists?
I think it's super important for them to be themselves, like really unapologetically, because I think a lot of what I struggled with was the want to be commercially viable, commercially accepted by other people, but you're basically putting yourself up against a standard that doesn't exist, because there is no other people out there making these huge blanket gateway things to success. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, you really, really have to think about what do you want to do, unique to you as an individual, and do that like unapologetically. So I dive all the way into making my political statements, right? And I think when I stopped dancing around the edges and I started saying those things, that's when I started getting a real response to my artwork. And so I think that everybody needs to think about that, right? Really think about how much it serves you to do a Miles Davis picture or a Martin Luther King picture, the same picture everybody always does every Martin Luther King Day. Like, why? Like, why are you doing it? I go back to what we said before. If I'm going to take time away from my son, why is this more important than that? Like, it doesn't seem like it should be a binary, but it is. Like, when he's here with me, if I have to stop playing with him to do this, why is this so important? What am I saying that makes it worth spending the time on it? And, that truth can be different for everybody. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a revolutionary or, dissecting society like I do. Like, if you like flowers, if that's truly what you like, then that's what you should do. And your best art is going to come from doing what you absolutely enjoy.
Amen to that.
Jamal, you have brought us an incredible message today at Art Over Bush Tea, and we so much appreciate this. I cannot tell you enough. The next thing we are looking forward to you is being an artist in residence here at the gallery. So again, I cannot thank you. And Patrice, thank you for being my co-host. It's just been an extraordinary time. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the time with Jamal and hosting with you as well, Sonia.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the Tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.